Welcome, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Peterson. I am one of the renewed board members. We are talking about using content usage data to grow subscription renewals. And we have two speakers with us, Devin Holland and Edwin Bailey. Devin Holland started his career as a journalist, but quickly pivoted to conducting market research with a focus on both in-person research and digital engagement and data collection solutions. Now, as the head of Science and Medicine Group, Inc.'s scientific market research publishing business, he focuses on converting customers who are used to buying research on a reactive basis to proactive enterprise-wide content subscriptions focused on Science and Medicine Group's main industries of focus, which are life sciences, diagnostics, analytical instrumentation, and medical imaging. In 2 years, through organic growth by acquisition, and implementation of content management and delivery tools such as Publish Interactive, Science and Medicine Group has shifted their revenue composition from 90% individual product purchases and 10% subscriptions to 50% individual purchases and 50% subscriptions, while still achieving very healthy positive growth in both areas. The subscription business in particular has enjoyed an annual subscriber retention rate of around 90%, with an average per account revenue growth of 50% plus compared to when those same clients relied on individual product purchases. So welcome, Devin. And Edwin Bailey has over 20 years of experience in commissioning, author relations, reselling, content licensing, publishing sales, marketing, and commercial strategies in trade, professional, and business publishing. Prior to joining Publish Interactive, he worked for a number of publishing companies, including Financial Times, Business, and Informa, before setting up his own business, URCH Publishing, a publisher of high-value pharmaceutical market reports and books. He also established ReportBuyer.com, an online reseller of specialist reports, which became one of the largest market report outlets. After selling the business in 2012, he worked as a consultant to business publishers on editorial, commercial, and online projects, including Smithers and Taylor and Francis. Edwin now heads up marketing and research for Content Catalyst. He holds a BA in geography from the University College London. So speakers, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the introductions. That's really kind. So Devon and I will do this session, and I guess it will kind of comprise myself asking Devon some questions. So Devon is a customer of ours, a very valued customer of Publish Interactive. So we have he uses our platform, and really a lot of this conversation will come from the analytics that he uses in his work. So I'll just start with a very quick introduction to who Publish Interactive is. And I'll just try and share my screen. There we are. Is that sharing? 1 second. There we are. No, it doesn't work.
Not yet. Let's.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't click the share button.
There we go.
Okay. We getting some slides?
We see some slides, yes.
Might want to make it a bit larger, Edwin.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect.
Good. It's difficult to see what I'm seeing. Okay. Just to won't bore people, just quick 1 minute overview. So yeah, Publish Interactive is a software platform for business publishers and business information publishers, and it offers a whole raft of tools from authoring, workflow tools, licensing, subscriber management, and usage analytics, and that's the bit that we want to talk about today. We've been in business 17 years. We own 3 patents, mostly around the way that content is delivered and the workflow around that. We have a lot of users, about I think over 100,000 end users, constantly accessing the platform, searching across a huge amount of content from different publishers. And we sort of guesstimate we've got about 25 million pieces of content in there, from large reports to news stories. We're headquartered in a city, a small city in the north of England called Leeds. Some people in the US may or may not have had the privilege of visiting. And just to give a quick overview on some of the customers that we work with, we can see Devon Science and Medicine Group in sort of healthcare category, but we service customers from any who are selling into any industry or covering any industry in terms of their content. So we are a software platform, and here's a selection of customers, some larger than others. But they're all selling what we describe as high value information. So information sold to subscribers who paid, usually an annual fee to access that, as opposed to individual one-off transactional sales. So that's just a quick crash course on who we are. And then I thought what we could do is I'd sort of ask Devon some questions, and then hopefully that would really get to the meat of the session of how analytics from our system helps Devon in his job within account management and business development. So I'm probably going to unshare my screen now and have a chat with Devon about this. So how do I unshare? 1 second.
Yeah, do you want me to do a very quick overview of our business, and then you can
sorry, Devon. It might be worth putting that into context. Yeah.
Perfect. I think you need to cancel the sharing on your end before I can start it up.
There we go.
Wonderful. Don't mind my extremely messy desktop. So Science and Medicine Group, as Elizabeth kind of mentioned, we have two parts of our business. The first part is sort of a traditional consulting business. And the second part, which I sort of head up, is our market research content publishing business. So we have 4 different publishing brands that we sort of have under this company umbrella, each one focused at a different sort of market vertical: life science, analytical instrumentation, medical imaging, and clinical diagnostics. I'm not going to go too deep into each one, but basically we publish content from each of these teams, and we use the Publish Interactive platform that Edwin was talking about to sort of post our research on that, license it to our different clients who subscribe to these different content verticals, and sort of use that as like a delivery platform. But today we're going to be kind of talking about more of the analytics that using that platform sort of allows us, what it allows us to do, and what we actually use that data for, both in terms of a sales conversation and what we kind of use it for internally, trying to figure out what we should publish, what maybe we should rethink, what we should maybe cut out or stop doing. So that's a really quick high-level overview of us. Have at it, Edwin.
Great. Yeah, okay. So what we're trying to do is understand how subscribers to high-value content, so your subscribers, how they engage and what that can mean for your publishing business and what that can mean for your sort of sales, marketing, and account management efforts. So really, Devin, could you give me a quick overview, or give the audience a quick overview of how you use analytics about your subscribers to help you in your business?
Sure. I actually kind of prepared a few things at like a high-level overview of the sort of the main ways we use this stuff. The first and primary way we use analytics is in those sales and renewal conversations. So we have, I think at this time, about 90 different companies who subscribe to our various content verticals. They can subscribe to one vertical, they can subscribe to a combination that best fits their business. And everything kind of operates off of a yearly cycle, or people can purchase sort of like a multi-year subscription. So how we use the analytics is obviously the platform tracks what people are viewing, the value of the content they're viewing, how often they're logging in. And we kind of have this step-by-step process that we use that data. And after I kind of explain this at a high level, I actually want to sort of give you guys all a peek behind the curtain to some analytics for a company. Obviously I've sterilized the company name and the people inside of it, but you can actually see what these analytics are. I've kind of highlighted some talking points there. So 3 months before one of these clients' subscriptions expires, that's kind of when we do a deep dive into their analytics. We download them, we try to figure out what their usage is like versus the price that they're currently paying for that subscription. And 3 sort of different things can happen. First of all, if the usage rate is really high, they're constantly using the content in the platform and we can see that. and the price of the individual products that they're accessing, adds up to a value that's much more than the subscription price that they're paying, that's probably the best case scenario. And in some cases, if there's a large discrepancy between those things, they're using a lot more content than what they're paying, we can actually consider increasing their price. And that conversation for the renewal looks pretty easy, because we know that they're finding value based on their high usage. We know that it's an easy conversation to have because the value they're getting is way higher than the price that they're paying for that content. Here is kind of the mid-tier, when their usage sort of equals the price that they're paying. There's not too much we have to do from a sales standpoint there, other than maintaining the price, maybe try to increase the usage of the content post-renewal. And there's a few different strategies that I'll touch on later that goes into how to do that. Worst case scenario, the usage is extremely low. It maybe doesn't equal the price they're paying for the subscription. So before the expiration date actually comes up, we'll try to increase the usage before that expiration date hits. This can look like a few different things, either going in and trying to identify the users that maybe haven't been using the platform and try to get them onto some training programs, how to use the tools. Maybe they're just having issues logging in, and that's something that we can easily solve. So there's a few different strategies based on how these analytics appear, prior to the expiration date. The second way we kind of use, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, just to be clear, we've got extensive analytics here, so we can see the journey almost from the logins to using search and actually time on particular product as well, which I guess is the key, maybe the key metric here, how much time is spent on a product.
Yeah, it's really, at least for the subscriptions that we have, it often is a value conversation. So obviously there's a price for purchasing all these products individually. And then if they purchase a subscription, it kind of gives them like a flat discount on all those products. We've actually found that, a company who typically purchases maybe 4 to 5 products per year, once they purchase a subscription and sort of all those restrictions to the content are lifted, they sometimes are using 4 to 5 products per month then, for the same price that they paid for just those 4 to 5 things per year. So it's a very easy value conversation for our sales team then to go in, just show them those analytics and be like, hey, for the price you're paying, you're getting a hell of a deal. The other thing I kind of wanted to touch on is, obviously there's a price component to this, which is relatively straightforward, but there's actually a behavioral component to it as well. I think the biggest struggle for a sales team sometimes is to know what's going through the mind of the people at their account. You can have a pretty good relationship with someone, but maybe you don't know the fine inner workings of their organization. We can actually use the analytics to see when they are accessing content. So there's the value component, and then there's sort of the timing and the pattern behavior component. For example, if we notice that year over year they're accessing a lot of content at specific time periods, that's when we can identify that maybe that's their company's strategic planning season, and then sort of tailor our sales outreach accordingly. Another part of that behavior. Go ahead.
Sorry, just on that point, Devin, you say we've identified a strategic planning season, or maybe the company's involved in some form of merger acquisition, which is creating an uptick in usage. How would you put that to use with your sort of team?
Yeah, so if there's periods of very low engagement with the platform, and we see that that's sort of a repeat year after year, we know to not worry too much, because this is sort of the usual for that account. Maybe normally, without seeing that this is a pattern, you start to panic a little bit. Are they disengaging with us? Are they no longer going to give us business, et cetera, et cetera? So we can sort of time our sales outreach to the periods of high activity. And we usually time that outreach to happen directly before the periods of high activity.
Right.
Yeah, obviously, when they're in the thick of things, they don't really have time to make an outside vendor a priority sometimes. So we want to make sure that we get our foot in the door and sort of remind them that we're there before they hop into those day-long meetings, just to remind them that, hey, we have these resources that can make the next month or two a lot easier for you. The other part of the customer behavior component is the platform gives you usage data on a per user basis. So we can actually see how often or how many times a user has logged in. This is actually extremely useful because we're able to see who the power users are of the platform and sort of use those people as our advocates to help us in renewal conversations. For example, sometimes the people who are the decision makers actually have very low usage, but they might still consider it to be something that's very valuable for their organization. But if we need someone to sort of join our voice in telling them that they need to renew this content, then we'll go to those power users and have them sort of argue on our behalf. It's a very strong sales conversation if you have sort of stakeholders at these client companies vouching for you, trying to convince their colleagues that yes, we use this content every day. Please don't turn this off.
So typically in a renewal conversation, would you approach the user who's engaged the most, or go straight to the decision maker?
It really depends. If the decision maker is very engaged with the content, we usually will go to them directly.
Yeah.
But if they are disengaged, or maybe someone or the purchase decision maker changed since they last placed the renewal, then we know who to go to. We'll go to those power users because we know they're going to be those brand advocates for us. So it's kind of a combination of the two things.
Okay, thank you. So I think your last two slides have really focused on looking at renewals with existing customers and existing subscribers, and you can see their usage. But are you finding that analytics can help with finding new business at all? Is that something you started to think about recently?
Yeah, so this is something we actually discovered we could take advantage of probably a few months ago, so it's pretty recent. Actually, let me switch my screen over to, we call the Publish Interactive platform our knowledge center. That's what we call it to clients. And this is sort of what it looks like. This is kind of the landing page, the home page of that big report content database. We recently discovered that we could actually make this publicly facing. So in the past, this was an entirely closed system. It's a portal that we controlled that clients would then, receive a login for. They would log in and then be able to access the content that was licensed to that specific user or their company. Now, Google is able to go through and actually scrape the hundreds of research reports that we have uploaded into here and sort of create those Google results, with those keywords and phrases. So if someone's just searching, for COVID-19 market data on Google, some of those search results could be search results from this platform now. So this is what the public facing one looks like. If you typed in a search, maybe they land on a piece of content that seems interesting to them. And a lot of the content in here is gated behind a paywall. So they'll be able to sort of see all the results, that match their keywords, or if they, Google creates a search result for this particular page, when they click that, this is where they'll land. And obviously, they aren't able to go and actually read the contents of the report, but they can see little details about it. They can see the table of contents. And then it gives them the option to actually request access, which will send a notification to our sales team. So we have actually gotten some new clients using this method. They're just out on the web searching for content. Google brings them to a web page inside the portal. They'll hit the paywall. They'll do a little searching around, see what maybe best fits their needs, and then they'll hit the report request access button. And then our sales team, can start up that conversation with them.
Yeah. And also, once they've got it, they can see the other content and the related content as well. When we, as we call it, when they're in platform as opposed to outside the platform. So that the marketing page is an important starting point, but once in, then you can see related content and how you've linked it together.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's all about, from our point of view, in terms of working for publishers, it's all about, you know, moving from the kind of the customer buying maybe one report or one product. How do we move them up the value chain to become a full subscriber, where they're you know, taking an annual subscription, which is much better value, and really getting the benefits. And as Devin pointed out, once people have a subscription, they're more likely to log in, they're more likely to use it more, and have greater dependency on the content. You know, it's all about the content ultimately, but we're trying to help that process, aid that process. So that's quite interesting, and it's something that's great to hear from our point of view. I guess.
I was going to say that's actually a really good point. Sort of the upselling part.
Yeah.
A long time ago, we actually started, you know, in addition to all the subscribers we have on the platform, we actually upload people who purchased just single pieces of content. And, you know, the strategy there is to get them inside the platform, and then obviously they have access to the thing that they purchased, or, you know, a few different things that they purchased, but really showing them everything else that's in there, you know, everything else that's going to pop up in the search results that's paywalled, is a huge way to sort of show them what they could have. And then we actually do get those usage statistics of the, you know, pieces of content that they've attempted to access but haven't been able to. And then we can look at that data and sort of approach them with a very informed sales conversation. You know, you're not doing, it's not cold outreach at that point, because you know from the platform that they're interested in content, and you know exactly the content that they're interested in. So you can tailor that beginning conversation exactly to what you know they're interested in. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to move on a little bit and talk about value, because I want to leave time for questions and discussion. So when I think of the word value, to me, there's two types of value within this business. One is the dollar value, or pound value, if you're here, that these subscribers bring into the publisher's business, and how much they're spending per year. And that's, you know, that's pretty easy to understand, or should be easy to understand from your sales systems. But let's think about it the other way around. What value are you providing to what value is the publisher providing to their customer and our end user? So we with our system and how you've outlined it, we have consumption data, we have engagement data, but that doesn't necessarily communicate the actual value to the end customer. I mean, I think this is the question that's troubling a lot of publishers, and lots of discussion about it. But Devin, do you have any views on how you are thinking about value? You know, if you take this report on COVID, someone buys it, why do they need it? What's the value to their organization? Is it saving them money? Is it giving them some insight that would cost more to get from somewhere else? How do you go about that at your company?
I mean, honestly, that's an extremely good question. It's kind of the million dollar question. You know, the analytics that we get from the platform are very good, sort of at a surface level, but you know, it's not going to tell you, okay, someone's accessed this 15 times, and maybe that reveals that this is a very important piece of content to whatever their current business strategy is. But you don't know exactly if they're using it for marketing strategy, if you know it for corporate development strategy, you know, mergers and acquisitions. So we've actually kind of had to employ some things outside of the platform to get additional data and sort of match that data with the analytics data that the platform gets us. One way we do this is we have an annual sort of client and subscriber survey. So all the users who are uploaded into the platform, we send out a big survey each year asking them, you know, what they use specific pieces of content for, you know, why they chose this specific piece of content, to sort of get some of those business case things. And then another thing is just honestly keeping in touch with them throughout the whole subscription process. I think sometimes management teams feel that, you know, sales automated renewals of subscriptions would be the best case scenario thing ever. You know, just have the salesperson go in there once a year at renewal time, have them re-sign, and then never talk to them again until it's that time next year. One thing we actually try to do to stay engaged with our clients is for some companies, we actually have sort of a standing quarterly meeting. So we'll set up a meeting with the core decision maker group or the librarian or whoever is, maintaining that subscription for their organization, like the admin people. And we'll review their usage, to basically reinforce the idea that they're getting value for their spend. But as part of that conversation, we also ask them about, what do you want to see on the platform? What do you think is missing from the platform? Do you have any concerns about the content? Are there pieces of content that you really liked? So it's a lot of qualitative information we're getting from staying in touch with them, that we then kind of marry to the hard data the platform gives us. But it's
I think that's what I sort of summarize that. We've got some quantitative data, some real live data from the subscriber actions from the system that can take us so far, but then there's the other softer data, some of it, the relationships, and if we can pull these together in a meaningful way, that's when you're really going to get inside the head of the customer and then create the product that they have dependency on and will come back and auto renew, hopefully, without too much of a struggle and persuasion. It is difficult. It's something that we talk about a lot. I think there's a limit to what our system can do when it comes to that point, and it is on these higher value subscriptions, very much personal relationships as well, but always underpinned with some factual data about usage, which you've laid out for us. So what I want to do now is, unless you have another slide or something, Devin, is sort of maybe open this up to the attendees, and we can maybe take some questions or comments and see if we can have a little discussion about this whole issue, maybe around analytics, what they can do, and the value as well to subscribers. So
yeah,
is that okay with you, Devin, to take a few?
Yeah, I actually had one thing, to show you exactly what the analytics look like from the platform that we use and sort of highlight, the points of interest. So earlier I was talking about customer behavior, talking about figuring out where the planning seasons are. This is real company or real data from a real company that has a subscription with us. So the platform, shows you the number of reports they've accessed on a monthly basis and sort of the values of those products. For this particular company, you can look at this data and see that the summer, which stereotypically in market research is considered kind of a dead period, especially because Europe is on vacation and whatnot, is actually a period of extremely high activity for this particular company. So that sort of busted that myth for us for this particular client. Here is sort of, the hard value of different products that they've accessed. This particular client pays around $40,000 to $45,000 a year for sort of access to all those different content. But the renewal conversation is extremely easy because you can see here in a 12-month period last year is all the content they accessed along with the associated dollar value. And when you add it all up, they're accessing almost over $500,000 worth of product, which is almost 10 times their spend. So it's a very easy sales conversation. And for this particular client, I mentioned earlier that you're able to see the content that they aren't able to access or maybe have requested access to. Halfway through the year, we sort of noticed from the data that the platform gave us that all these different highlighted reports were for a content category that they hadn't purchased and hadn't licensed. And we were easily able to go and say, hey, we've noticed that you've been trying to access a lot of this content, and we were able to then upsell them to that additional content category. And here's kind of the login. Because
you can license a category in our system, not just the actual products, which is one of the sort of key strengths. You can there's quite a lot of ways you can license content to the end user.
Yeah, it's quite easy. You just flip a switch and toggle it all on for them after you get the paperwork. It's a lot better than sending PDFs, which is what we used to do before using the platform.
Yeah. And you can also, without going too much into the platform features, you can also put a dollar value in the platform of the product. Is that something you do so the end user can see how much it's kind of sells for?
So it's not like we charge people extra for accessing the content of the platform. That's kind of like a business cost that we just take on. Yeah. Is that kind of what you were asking?
No, you can put an actual price next to each product, and the end user can see it in the platform.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's,
they go,
where it comes from.
I'm kind of getting free access to the £4,000 report there. But I mean, it's a choice of whether publishers would wish to
Yeah, exactly.
take that option. So I wasn't sure which you did.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is really interesting. And you were just talking about the login data there on the column K. And what are there any takeaways from that people might find interesting?
Yeah. So funny enough, this client is also one where the decision makers, these people with the X have some usage, but they're definitely not the power users. So, these three people who are sort of analysts for this company, we constantly engage with them to make sure they're happy because they're the ones using this content the most. And as part of that constant engagement with them, we're maintaining and constantly building that good sales relationship. So if, Ryan or Laurent, for some reason, would decide one day that, hey, maybe this is too much of an expense, not worth it for our business, we know who to go to sort of, be an ally of ours at that company.
Yeah, thought to go to you.
Yeah, and then obviously, you see the people without any usage data, and that's something that we constantly try to work on to re-engage those folks, or maybe send this user list to the admins at that company and ask if these people might have left, and then we can make sure that they don't have access. So that's part of our renewal conversation, as well as refreshing the user list, taking out people that might have left, bringing in new people who might have joined.
Great. Okay. I think we can open this up to questions. I think there are some questions in the chat. Is that right? I don't know whether. Let's have a look.
This is a good one.
Yes. So here's a question from Stephanie. Is there a creepiness factor when you do that? That is, reach out to prospects based on what content they've engaged with. It feels a little bit Big Brother. It's a great question. So is it creepy?
It's a fantastic question. It is to an extent, but I think it's really how you reach out to that person. We never, at least my particular strategy is I never tell them, hey, I saw that you were looking at X, Y, and Z. It's a lot easier if they request access to a report, because then it's very normal. They want you to reach out to them. They're hitting that request button. It can feel weird, but at the same time, how many people have entered in their information to like to download a free product, and then you get a call or an email from a salesperson within the hour? It's just kind of, it's something that feels weird, but it's something that's almost normalized to an extent, is that, their stuff is going to be tracked. You just have to, form that conversation appropriately. You never tell them that, hey, I noticed you looked at this and this 2 days ago. And maybe you phrase it like, I noticed your company might have had some interest in this topic. Can I be of any assistance? Here's some relevant products that I noticed might be of relevance, that kind of thing.
And certainly from my experience of selling in into enterprises and into information units, selling kind of subscription products and contracts, the buyers, if they're an information buyer, is actually extremely interested in the usage data. They have a budget. They have to go and spend this and deploy this with various content and publishing companies and information companies. They want to know that their internal customers are using it. If you can support their view on how the content's being used, that's very valuable for them as well. I don't know whether if you're selling to information units, they're asking for that data, and maybe they can see it themselves sometimes as well. So I think that's a useful angle to take as well.
Yeah, we work very closely with sort of the decision makers or the librarians at these accounts. Every company has their own way of wanting to see how much their company is using it. Sometimes we'll sterilize or anonymize the specific users at the account, especially with some GDPR concerns going on, obviously. But Yeah, I mean, some companies just ask us straight up, we want the usage data for all of our users. So these managers and stuff can sort of see if their analysts are using this as a resource. And that's not really a malicious thing typically. It's just because they want to make sure that their fellow coworkers realize that they have this giant database of great content and that they're not sort of missing out on something that they could be using in their work.
Yeah, and certainly I was talking to a large information buyer for a very large corporate recently, and they also wanted to know what content their internal customers were looking for that they didn't have subscriptions for. And that's actually quite difficult to find out because their job is to service the organization with information. But somebody might be looking around for reports on COVID. Oh, we don't have any, don't worry, I'll find it elsewhere. So they internally, the enterprise sort of gatekeeper hasn't done their job. So it does work both ways. A couple of questions have come in. Devin, could you talk a bit more about strategies you've used to get customers with low usage to log in and access more content? I think that literally is the ultimate question. It's about how do you take that maybe low value subscriber or occasional user, how do you get them fully engaged and up the value chain?
I'll be honest, that's a tough one. We employ a few different strategies. One is to re-engage the decision maker for the subscription and try to have them help us organize, like a conference call or something with that, with their various colleagues who would find this data useful, and sort of use that as a training session, explain, what content they have, how to use the platform correctly, the different tools that it allows them to do. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is, actually doing some cold outreach to other people at these companies. So all these subscriptions that we have are an enterprise-wide license. So any of the people on the, at the company who have a company email address can access the content through their company account. Sometimes there's some politics that you have to be careful of there, people wanting the content to just be within a certain sphere of the company or what have you. But we'll reach out to people and say, hey, yes, I'm a salesperson, but I want to make you aware that you have all this great content available to you. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to do you a service, almost. And then once you rope them in with all the free stuff that they've already purchased, that's when you try to find opportunities to then upsell and cross-sell them to the different products and services.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions. I think actually one of them might be for me. Ron, you mentioned Google public search driving sales. What do search engines, what will Google find on the Publish Interactive platforms? Titles or the entire content? Well, no, you wouldn't see the entire content. What Google would see is what we call a marketing page. So each product can have a marketing page. In that, it has some descriptions, some metadata, and the table of contents. And is that Google can see if you allow it to, but they can't actually get into the content, but they can have a pretty good idea of what's in the content. So it's a little bit more in depth than just having a table of contents on a kind of WordPress site or something like that. I lost my chat. There we go. Another question, I think, for me, do we monitor searches on the database? Yes, one of the metrics provided is around searches, so you can see what people are searching for, and I think that's very useful. Maybe we could ask Devin about that. If people are searching for COVID but you don't have anything on COVID, what do you do about it? Does that feed into your editorial team, for example?
Yeah, this is actually a great question. We've been talking a lot about how we use it for sales and sort of customer relationships, but we actually use the platform analytics a lot to try to figure out what our publishing schedule each year should look like. So for example, if a piece of content doesn't have any sales in a particular year, but it's extremely well read by all of our subscriber companies, that's something that we're probably not going to axe from the schedule because clearly there is still a lot of engagement with it. We do use that search monitoring tool to try to pinpoint, what topics people are searching for that come up with 0 results, and try to maybe create some extra content that sort of hits those keywords or topics that these people are searching for. So all this stuff sort of factors into our publishing strategy, in addition to like our sales strategy.
Yeah, and that's one of the sort of high level things that we've been thinking around internally, is around the kind of whole publishing workflow. And it does depend on the industries and sectors you're covering. Some are faster moving than others. But if you're in a reasonably fast moving industry, we're looking at a kind of an event that you might be covering editorially, short form articles, briefs, etc. And then looking how they're consumed by the subscriber and the engagement there. So that's a kind of like a customer account research role, and then bringing that data back all the way back to commissioning again. So it sort of works in a complete feedback loop at the speed of the markets that you cover. Tech tends to be quicker perhaps than life sciences. That's something that analytics is literally there. That is the core part of that feedback loop. Without that, you have to wait so long to gather the data around the usefulness. You will depend on surveys or phone calls and anecdotal information. So it's something we're suggesting that companies, if they're not already doing, can think a little bit more structurally about how they commission content. And you're only commissioning content that engages the subscriber and is useful to them and helps them with their end tasks. We also think that it's for a task, and that the task creates value to the subscriber, and they continue to renew. So it's slightly off topic, but
it can be a fine line to walk sometimes. Like especially when you start to have a pretty diverse customer base and they all start to want different things, but your internal resources are limited. That's where the hard data really comes in handy. If all else equal, if something has a lot more searches or reads than another thing, we're going to choose the thing that has the higher engagement.
Okay, great. Are there any more questions? Here's the chart. I don't see any more in the chat. I don't know whether Elizabeth is still here, but I think there's we're coming up about 45 minutes. Is probably the right length for these webinars and on-screen interactions. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming along and listening to myself and Devon. Thank you so much for Devon for putting together and being so clear about what he does in his business, but also showing us some, sanitized, as you call it, or sterilized. That's a good word for your industry. Sterilized data, but to show what can be done. And if anybody wants to talk about that further, please get in touch with myself, and I'm sure Devin would be happy to answer questions offline as well. I've just seen something to say. Hi, Edwin. Thank you.
Oh, hi. Sorry. I just wanted, before you sign off, Elizabeth had to jump off. I'm Victoria, who's also from the Renewed Network. I just wanted to thank Edwin and Devin for a great presentation, and just wanted to mention that we've got a webinar on the March the 16th on consultative selling, which builds really nicely off what we've been talking about today. So plug for that. One of Katie James, who's commercial director of Academy, one of my people is going to be leading that on March the 16th. So if anyone's interested in taking this a bit further, I'm fascinated. It's a great product. Thank you very much for sharing some really, really helpful data. Stephanie, is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Yes, I'll also ask people to save the date for our virtual conference. The first ever Renewed conference will be September 14th to 16th, I believe 10 a.m. to noon those days. So we're doing 3 days, a couple hours over each day. We have a great committee put together to gather topics and speakers, and really looking forward to that. So save the date, more details coming on that soon. And as always, we encourage you guys to join us on the Slack channel to continue this discussion. And we'll be sending out an email later this week with the recording and Devin and Edwin's contact information as well, in case you have questions for them.